That should go down. Yeah, and then we come back here. Good. I can come here. Great. Okay. So, welcome everyone to Humanity's Destiny. I think we can get going. I've got this spacecraft more or less connected and ready to fly. And we are today future bound. We're always future bound in this class. So, hello, Brooklyn, Yasmin, George, and Steve. Everybody there online should be able to hear me clearly. And if you can't, then just let me know in the live chat for now. And I see someone else joining, and I'll bring you up on the big board shortly. So let me just do one final little test and make sure. Hi, Steve. Can you jump on your microphone and just let us know you're there? Go ahead. Just say hello on your microphone. Make sure. Steve? How about George? Can you just say hello on your microphone?
Hello?
Okay, great. Okay, good. So that's working. Thank you very much. So we can start the class, and in a moment I'll bring everything up on the big board, and we will start to jump into history's lessons today. That's the topic. But as always, the beginning of the class, I just want to kind of bring everybody up to speed and do a little bit of a review. So nice to see everyone back here in person. I think last week I was at home, and I'll try and keep my distance a little bit from you because I'm still not quite 100%. So you'll have to go get the microphone yourself. I shouldn't touch anything, but I'm leaving a mask off. I don't have COVID. It's just something going around. Okay, so anyways, Jesus, here it goes. Just a second. Man, it's like once this cough, does anybody have this cough? It gets you, and then it just for 5 seconds you can be kind of like skidding in this cough. You can't stop it. Okay, I stopped it. No skid cough, please. So how's everybody? Good for a third week into 3 weeks, and are you? Hopefully, you're starting to get ready for your first assignment or reflection in this class. You saw the announcement and the email that I sent because I'm trying to really communicate well this semester in terms of not just posting things on DC Connect, but also getting you simultaneously things into your inbox so you can see what's going on. And so, what I would like to do today is just give a little lecture, a little talk on this idea of history's lessons and what history can teach us about the future, about where human beings may be going as we try to leave the planet, which we're starting to do now. We have been leaving it in expensive space missions, and also there's new frontiers that Elon Musk and other entrepreneurs are opening up in commercializing space travel, making it cheaper, allowing humanity to perhaps see more in our solar system at less cost. And also, there is this question that we have to be asking ourselves as we start to look further off the planet and we think more about our future in the whole solar system and beyond, which is there anything down here on this planet in terms of human civilization that has been happening over the last 10,000 years here that can teach us something about what we need to know as we move forwards in this century and in this millennium, third millennium, the 2000s. So there are some lessons that I can help you to understand because I teach short history of the world out of this classroom as well, and spend a lot of time thinking about the um, the things that humanity might have learned in our story on this planet. concrete things that perhaps we can take with us into the future in the hope that we improve ourselves. That's always going to be the big kind of one of the big questions that we have to ask ourselves about history and about the future, which is, are human beings capable of truly improving themselves? What do they need to improve? And has there been this thing called progress happening in our story? Or is it just a kind of illusion that our tools are progressing? Our machines are getting more sophisticated. But in terms of our souls, our spirits, our minds, the way we relate to each other, are we progressing? Do we just have better toys? Is that all there is really in terms of our progress? So we need to understand a little bit more about what's been happening in history. Before I get to that, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what's coming with your first reflection and beyond. And also come on in, and also to check in with you to see if any of you were able to familiarize yourselves with Paul Sappho's excellent article in the Harvard Business Review that was written a few years ago, but it's still not dated, called Six Rules for Effective Forecasting. There's some good information in there on how to think about the future in very concrete ways. So I want to review that, and then I'm going to give a little lecture. And if we have time, I'm going to put you into groups, small groups, to discuss the positive and negative uses of artificial intelligence in your first reflection. Okay, so want to make sure, hopefully, we have time for that. But so first, does anybody have any questions here? Anything on your mind that you would like to bring to the class's attention? You don't have to, but I just want to always make sure we have time to check in with the most important human beings in this class. Me. I mean, you. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Human history is filled with a lot of dictators and selfish and people who don't really think about others too much. And democracy is a very new thing for humans. So we'll try to be more democratic in this class. Promise. Anything here? Anything on your mind? Nothing? No? Okay, good. How about in the solar system, planet BR, planet Y, and I'll bring you all onto the board, planet G. Let's bring you in right now. Is there anything you would like to ask or say while I get this up? Here we go. Nice. That was fast. I did it. Excellent. Okay. So how about, well, Yasmin, we can always default to. She will always have something to say. So since, I'm a bit lazy right now and trying to get my brain into the class, I'll default to Yasmin and say, Yasmin,
Yeah.
anything you'd like to say or ask at this point?
Well, not so much ask, but I guess bring to the attention. I don't know if people are aware or watching news. I don't know what's going on social media, but now with Yemen again, as they've been in not the bestest of states for quite some time, and now the United States of America is now
Yes.
getting involved with them on top of, the Palestinian Israeli conflict now. The Middle East is getting worse and worse and worse, despite it being such an important setting in our lives, in our
Yes.
ancestry, and everything above. So it's hard to see it constantly being going down. And I know the Yemenis children, I think it was like 5 years ago, it was quite booming on social media, all the impact. And I don't know
Yes.
how to form it into words, but there was a lot of talk about it. And then after a week, it disappears. And this tends to be a common occurrence for those suffering
Yes.
in very war-torn countries, especially like Africa and Middle East. They're so not acknowledged. whatsoever. We look at them for a day or a week, and then
Sure.
something else happens for whatever
Yep.
reason, and yeah, that's it. That's my 10
Well,
cents.
no, actually, you know what? I always like to link what we do here, which of course is about the future, to the present, if we can, because you have to be able to be realistic about our future, and our future depends so much on what we're doing now, of course, and history can teach us things. So let's actually do a little bit of geography and a little bit of understanding of what Yasmin is touching on, which is this idea of, conflict in a certain part of the world where there often has been conflict. And let's just explore this a little bit to understand what maybe we can gain in terms of a small lesson for humanity about what Yasmin is actually putting her finger on. So first, because I'm always trying to do something new in this class in terms of interactivity and technology, so why don't we do this? Okay, I have an arrow, and watch. I'm going to put this arrow over here on the map of the world. Okay, which is what you can all see in person. Now, Yasmin, can you see my arrow moving around on the big board from your view?
Yes, ever so slightly, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we can even do it without the arrow. So here's something fun. I'm going to have Yasmin show us, and if she can't quite, I will show, but let her first, where Yemen is. Okay, and I'm going to have her direct us. Now, let's keep in mind what we're doing here technically. We have a person who's somewhere else in the world. Well, Yasmin, she's fairly close, but since she's online, she could be in Yemen right now for all we know, although probably not because things, the pretty technology's not been so great there lately. But at any rate, she's going to direct us. We're going to be in person watching her direct us. And then later on YouTube, or even now, they can be seeing the recording of Yasmin doing the directing. And well, I mean, to me, it seems kind of cool, but maybe for you guys, it just seems like, old hat. So, anyways, Yasmin, go ahead and right now, where exactly do you see the, you know what I'll do to help
It's in
you?
the ocean, or it was in the ocean.
I'm going to increase the size of the cursor. I'm going to make it huge. Okay. So I'm having fun with tech, and I'm thinking like massive cursor. Okay. So there's massive cursor. Okay.
Okay,
Do you see massive cursor?
I do.
Okay. Could you direct us? Where should that cursor go so that it lands on Yemen?
So you see the deeper purple blot of land to the right, northeast of Africa,
Oh, this purple part.
but go south.
Yeah. And here's Turkey, and here's Iraq, and that's the center and the cradle of civilization once upon a time. Did you know that? No, history's lessons. See, there's method in my madness here. I'm not just paddling down a creek and not going to take you somewhere that's significant. This is history, and Yasmin has helped us to go there today. So wait a minute. Hold on. We're in Iraq, and once upon a time, that was Mesopotamia, land between two rivers out of the Persian Gulf. But wait a minute. Should we go south to Saudi Arabia? The
Yes, to
Arabian.
the oil mines of the world,
Yeah, and then
and then
there's Yemen.
southern, and
Yeah,
boom.
right. Right. So I'm really teaching off my toes here, but that's the best teaching that I like. I wasn't expecting to do this when I walked into the class today, is have Yasmin teach us something with me helping her about Yemen that relates to history's lessons. But that's what being in a classroom should be. We should be spontaneous, and we should be fresh, and we should be current. So, Yasmin, what is going on in Yemen right now and the United States? And why might this have some sort of lesson for humanity and our future? Could you teach us a little bit? Go ahead.
Well, based on what I've acknowledged in the past, since I was born, I guess you could say. We'll fast forward 11 years till I could understand politics to a certain extent. But the USA has always caught, made themselves into situations to further demonize certain countries to gain rich minerals from them and
Mm.
continue impoverishing them. But in short, Yemen, and I think in 2014, was overruled by their militia, the Houthi rebels. They overthrew the government, and I would assume that made
Yes.
them worse. But who knows if some agree with it or who disagree? But I don't
Mhm.
understand why the Americas constantly have to interrupt and intervene in certain conflicts. And they
Sure.
don't help the
Yeah.
situation, they worsen the situation, especially in Africa where it's so rich in minerals and oil, and same as in Venezuela, Colombia, and Southern America, they're so rich in minerals as well. But they're constantly they're very poor, despite them being so rich in minerals and resources.
So there might be a lesson here in something about how power is exercised by certain countries in the world and how those countries relate to other countries that may have something that that bigger country needs, and that we often call exploitation, or we might talk about extraction of resources. But let's go a little bit further for a moment, because we'll get something really concrete. Yasmin, where were you born exactly? What country?
I was born here, but my parents are, my mom's Polish and my dad's Lebanese.
Ah, okay. So I know this because Yasmin was in another class and she always has something interesting to say. Um, do all of you know where Lebanon is? Wha If you don't, why didn't Yasmin show us? Because Lebanon is a country that understands a lot about how it feels to be exploited, to be small, and to be in constant conflict as well with some of these important forces that are playing out now in Yemen too, and in what's called the Red Sea. So Yemen is right next to the Red Sea, and then you have the eastern part of Africa. And just so you know, I can help you understand this a little bit. Oil, oil and fossil fuels are a big part of all of our lives. And well, a lot of oil comes from the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, and that big nation. The Red Sea is where a lot of that oil is shipped through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean Sea. But now the rebels in Yemen have started to bomb and attack the ships that are moving that oil and other products up north in the Red Sea into the Mediterranean Sea, forcing all of those ships to go around the Horn of Africa, the southern part of Africa, which is very costly. And potentially, we will start to feel the effects of this soon when products here may start to rise and the price of oil may start to rise because the rebels there have made it difficult for the resources there to get to us here. Does that sort of make sense, Yasmin, in terms of how you understand it?
Yeah, I know oil is always the number one
Oil.
contributor
Okay.
to these things, unfortunately.
Energy is a huge lesson that we're going to have to understand a little bit today, which is how have humans in history fueled their societies and how will they in the future? Once upon a time, not too long ago, there wasn't oil, there wasn't coal. These are fossil fuels. It was wood. So we will get to that in a moment. But what we're seeing happen and what Yasmin has just started to help us to understand is there's a conflict happening there in that part of the world right now that is very old. It has tentacles that go back into history in terms of the way large powers treat smaller powers, the way energy is extracted and used and transported. And then Yasmin brings another perspective, which I know she could, but we won't go there now, which is the Lebanese perspective, a country that has faced so much conflict. And do you know that Lebanon once, not that long ago, was one of the most beautiful countries in Europe and the Middle East? It was a place people went for vacation. I think it was called Lebanon, wasn't it? Sort of like one of the most beautiful. What's the name? Like not Venice of the East, but
Paris.
the
The
Paris.
Mhm.
Lebanon was called the Paris. If you looked at Lebanon now, it sure doesn't feel like Paris these days, does it, Yasmin?
No, unfortunately not. I stayed at a hotel and you see bullet holes through the fence and stuff. It was
Exactly.
quite a sight.
Exactly. So how did that happen? How could this beautiful country, not too long ago, was the Paris of its region, is now a place where a person has just told you whose relatives come from there, and the first thing she's saying, more or less, are bullet holes. That's kind of sad. So that's just a little bit of history, tiny bit. Yasmin, is there anything else you'd like to say before we jump into this? And I'm going to do a little talk on history's lessons. Anything that you think we should be thinking about today in terms of what might be a very important lesson in history that you've learned from your study of human history a little bit with me, or just your thinking about history and the way you think about the world? Is there anything that you think we should be putting into our notes today about
Um, Definitely
lessons?
not to allow the corrupt minds to corrupt yours, to not let your beliefs interfere with the relationships that you can develop with others with other perspectives. And don't let money rule your mind.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll get to the notes in a moment. Great. So I'm going to come in here in person momentarily, but I just want to check in with anybody else online. George, Brooklyn, is it Area, Oriya, or anybody else want to add something before we start getting things going here in person? Everybody good there? Is it Ethan? Oh yeah, Ethan. Yeah, Ethan, Steve, George, Yasmin, Brooklyn, and Araya. Good. Okay, so we see it in the live chat. Okay, here comes a moment of truth. I'm going to ask all of you. Excuse me, I got to control this. Did anybody read 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting? Okay, you glanced. Okay, good. That's a start. I didn't assign it in a very official way. I didn't post an announcement about it. I just mentioned it in last week's class. So it was low pressure homework. Okay, low pressure homework. Now, what's your name again? Kanisha. Kanisha. Okay, take the microphone. I don't want to touch it. Okay. All right. So that you can answer and I'll translate. Was there anything there that you saw that you remember? Okay. Okay, good. So at least I'm getting an honest answer here. Nobody's seen it. Well, Kanisha's seen it, but nobody's read it. Did anybody online 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting? I know since I didn't assign read part of it. Okay, good. So Yasmin, hold your thoughts, okay? Because I may come to you a little bit later. So I'm actually going to then move on from that right now because there's a lot I want to get to today. But first, what I'd like to say is that there's a reason for why I wanted you to read 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting. That's something we can review right now. Next question. What was last week's class about? What was the topic of last week's class? Like what did we explore while I was sitting in my study at home that led to me assigning 6 rules for effective forecasting? Because this is important, this part. We watched a couple of videos. The MIT video, The one about Joe Rogan in the sensory deprivation tank? Was that run at all? Maybe not. Ooh, okay. Free Your Mind, MIT. You remember that one? Hold on. Okay. Just a second. Yes, scenario planning. It could be I'm having a moment of respiratory brain fog or not COVID and memory lapse. Just a second, okay? Last week in last week's class, that's when we started to look at the ways to think about history in more practical ways. Is that not what we were exploring last week? Hmm. Okay, here comes a moment of truth. That's all right. It doesn't matter as long as we learn. George, we talked about AI. George, okay, good, because I'm, yeah, well, good. Okay, well, we'll resolve it today. George, what did we explore last week exactly? Would you be able to jump on your microphone? Tell us?
We talked about a little bit about AI and what happened last year with it and how you want us to use it going forward. We talked about opening our mind. We watched the videos on that.
Good. Okay.
We talked about the some bath, something cryo something. I think I can't remember the exact word for it. We talked about that too.
Okay.
And you just kind of set the ground rules for like the semester.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thanks. Because I knew we touched on how to think about the future and how to begin to do something with your mind. So that's where I want to come back to. Thanks, George, for helping refresh your professor's memory here. Okay, I remember now. Okay. So when we talk about thinking about the future, when we say that we're future bound in this class, that we're moving towards the future has not happened yet. So then what becomes a critical quality, and we're still reviewing right now from last week, what becomes a very critical quality that you need to work on, almost like a muscle, in order to be ready for the future? Your future, yes. Open-mindedness, absolutely. Open-mindedness, imagination. Further than that, there is a term that has come up already in the live chat. Yasmin is there, and I want to just do a quick review with you on all of this because this is something Paul Sappho does explore in 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting, and it's really important for all of you to engage in. It's called scenario planning. So let's stop for a moment and see how this applies to your life and to the future. And I'll go around a little bit here with all of you. So what's your name? Daniel? Okay, Daniel, do you mind coming up on the seat here and taking a microphone and being the brave one? Well, it's, you're gonna, good, excellent. So go and just turn it on and hold the mic like it's karaoke, okay? Daniel, would you call yourself an optimist, a realist, a pessimist, generally speaking? Like, where would you put yourself in that kind of?
Like with like new stuff?
Generally, when you look at, things that are gonna happen in a day or ahead, how do you generally feel? You feel like, if you work hard and you study it, you can make your dreams happen. It's all gonna happen.
Depends if I have my coffee.
Yeah. Okay. Espresso or just,
Dark roast.
dark roast? Yeah, I recommend, Tim's espressos have gotten very good lately.
Can't go wrong with Timmy's.
Tim's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tim's okay. Dark
Yeah.
roast, Tim is good. I understand. Okay, let's say you've had your dark roast. Your mind is starting to click in, and you're starting to think, and you see a job posting.
Mhm.
What program are you in?
Mechanical engineering.
Mechanical. And what year?
Second.
Second year. Okay. Will you be graduating this year?
Next year.
Next year. Okay.
Hopefully.
I would think that getting a good job is important to you.
Hmm.
So let's just play out a scenario. This is scenario planning. You are playing out a situation that is going to happen in the future, and you want to make sure it happens the way you want. You want control over the future. This is what humans like. We like to know that there's some kind of predictability in our lives and in what's happening around us. Otherwise, we get stressed. So, is it fair for me to say that, human to human, Daniel, that if there were a job posting for a good mechanical engineering position a year after you've graduated, 2 years from now, we're now talking about the very near future with Daniel, okay? It hasn't happened yet. It's 2 years from now. You've graduated. You've been looking for work. You've gone for interviews. It hasn't quite worked out yet. You've gotten close. Then this great posting comes up. Okay, use your imagination for a second. What would be a great posting? What would be a posting that you would love to see that is available to you?
Something that's high paying.
Something that's high paying. Okay, a high paying posting. Fair enough. And the next question I would have is, this position is asking you to come for an interview. What is this position exactly for exactly? It's a high paying position to do what? We have to get specific now. You have to use your imagination in concrete ways. You have to think now hard about something that hasn't happened yet, and you have to make it real in your mind. So you got to get specific. So what is this position exactly for?
I don't know. It could be for a lot of things, depending on what kind of like area you want to get into. So like
Okay.
for me, probably more on like the automotive design, because that's kind of what I'm into. That's what I
Okay.
came here for.
All right.
So if a job came up where it was something along the lines of like automotive design,
Yes.
anything like that, that's probably what I'd want to see.
Automotive design.
Yeah.
Does anybody here want to also help in this scenario that we're beginning to plan for with Daniel in giving a name of a company, a place in this region that may be a well-known automotive design facility or something that would make it even more real for Daniel? Anybody know of a good automotive place around? Anybody online that yes. Oh, General Motors. Great. So we're getting more real. General Motors has made a posting, a high-paying posting for an automotive design position at its plant in Whitby? Oshawa?
Oshawa.
Oshawa. Now we're getting very real. Hasn't happened yet. This is good because you know what I'm seeing right now as I look at all of you? I'm actually seeing all of you, I think, using your imaginations and thinking about something that hasn't happened yet, which is in 2 years' time, General Motors posts a position for an automotive design engineer, or what would you be calling yourself?
I don't know, just like a engineer.
Say automotive engineer. Excellent. Let's just check once more online, and then we're going to go a little further with the scenario, because what we want to make sure we help Daniel with is get this job. But how is he going to do that? Well, we have to help him, but we have to plan for different scenarios that might happen when he goes for the interview, because he wants to be ready for the interview. And the only way you're ready for something is if you, in your mind before you do it, you go through different scenarios. So you're ready in case the interviewer is somebody that's really difficult and you're going to be able to answer the questions, or you're ready for it if suddenly you get a team of people, 3 or 4 people, or you're ready for it if suddenly the interview goes so well and they offer you the job and you're shocked because you never thought you'd be offered the job in the first place. What do you do now? In other words, you will be ready for multiple scenarios. Is this making sense? This is scenario planning, how you get ready for something. Okay, online, is there anything you'd like to add for Daniel as we kind of try and figure out what this position is? General Motors, high paying, Oshawa, automotive engineer. There's a posting for it in 2 years. Do any of you have anything to add for Daniel to make this even more real, this posting? We are scenario planning together, and we're doing it realistically. Okay. If there's anything, put it in the live chat. Great. So now let's get down to the interview. It's 2 years. If you wanted to make the scenario very, very accurate and real,
What?
having a plan B. George, it's not only a plan B, it's a plan C, a plan D, and a plan E. Scenario planning opens your mind to all sorts of things, not just 1 or 2 things. So you have to really brainstorm at the beginning, and then you start to narrow it down as to what you think are the likeliest scenarios. But this part now is the most interesting part. George is saying plan B. I would say right now, you need much more than a plan B. Plan A, B, C, D, E, F, as many different ways of looking at this situation before it happens. So, George, I should say Daniel, I'm going to say, just for the sake of reality, that this position has been posted on a April day in 2026, on a Saturday in April, and you see it, and the posting is expecting to see your resume and your letter and reference by the following Thursday. Will you be ready to do that? To provide some letters of reference, and will you be able to write a good letter to them along with your resume?
Yeah, I think so. I already have a resume, so I'll just send them that.
Great.
Maybe pray a bit.
Pray. Nice. Okay. It's always good to have a religious dimension, but it may not help you too much right now, but we'll see. Okay. Here is where we need to really understand, come on in, how the scenario is going to play out. The interview happens. Think of the different things that could happen right now in that interview, Daniel. When you walk in that morning, try to imagine where it's taking place.
Probably in like a office, I would imagine.
Okay. And try to imagine how you're dressed. Try to imagine the people that are in that room. And then, most importantly, try to imagine them asking you very difficult questions. How would you answer them?
Depending on the question, obviously, but hopefully stuff that they're looking for the answer. So if they ask me a question regarding like experience or I don't know, like a difficult question, like you said, I'll
Yes.
try to think of the best answer that I could give them and hope that it works.
It doesn't sound like you're very prepared.
Well, I don't know. I'd say I'm pretty prepared.
Okay.
I'll just wing it.
You'll wing it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's first scenario. Daniel wings it. Okay, that's scenario number 1. Daniel wings it. What could be 2, 3, or 4? So the second, third, or fourth scenario. And then we'll finish, okay? We'll conclude this. What are 3 other scenarios that Daniel could be encountering at this moment in that April day in 2026 when he's in the office with a group of GM managers who are interviewing him for the position of automotive design engineer? First scenario, Daniel wings it. How do you think that's going to go?
Get the job.
Okay. Winging it, okay? He wings it. What you think that's a pretty safe approach to take, or do you think he should have another plan ready in case winging it proves to be very, very difficult to do because within the first 10 seconds, you're getting 4 people looking at you, kind of beginning to, look like they know you're winging it and they don't like this. So winging it is just one approach. What's the second approach that he could be taking? Yes. Can you can't take a mic just so they can hear? I don't want to get you sick, so take it so they can hear you online, okay? Because I want to make sure all the students go and hold it just like karaoke, okay?
Hello? Okay.
Yep, go ahead. Yep, good.
Okay. So like I would do research. Like, is this company gonna be good? Or like I would look into other companies with similar positions because sometimes people post like how is it working at a different company and what are the benefits and what are like the challenges because people like now because technology is so advanced people would post these things about the company, so I would do my research even before applying or being in like the actual room,
Yes.
so you're more prepared for what kind of questions they might ask you when you go into that actual interview.
Yeah, and if you could find out, for example, who might be on that interview committee in advance and do a little research about that person, whatever is available online, so you go in armed with information about the people in front of you. So that would be very helpful. But that's just one other way of approaching this, one other scenario, which is that you go in super prepared and that you understand the people around you. But then something happens. When you arrive, 2 of the 4 people that you were sure were going to be on the committee have been replaced by 2 others for some reason. This is the final scenario, and then we're going to stop. How would you deal with the fact that everything you've prepared for, you've done all your homework, you learned everything about the 4 people on the committee, you're ready to answer their questions individually, you're ready to have a little small talk with each of them if you have to, because you know a little bit about their backgrounds, but you're surprised because 2 of them aren't there and you've got these 2 new people. What would you do then? And you're playing this out in your imagination before you even go to this meeting, Daniel. You're just playing this out, playing it out. How would you play that out?
So I'd probably, if I see like 2 people who I am not expecting and they're like given the interview,
Yes.
obviously introduce myself. Probably try to sell myself a bit to them, tell them how I could be beneficial to GM,
Yep. Yep.
how I would be the perfect fit. Kind of just treat it like as if they were the people who I was expecting.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah,
Very
just
good.
make sure I sell myself and not get rejected.
Now, here's the final thing I'd like to say, and then we're going to move on. We've just gone through 3 scenarios. There was the winging it scenario, there was the super prepared scenario, and there was the, if surprise scenario. Something happens when you walk in that you weren't expecting. Do you see the benefits of having a greater chance of success in this meeting, having gone through this exercise before the meeting happened? This exercise of playing out 3 different scenarios. do you feel a little more confident that you're going to get the job because you're ready for 3 different scenarios?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So the next time something is going to happen that you want control over, what are you going to do?
Probably just make sure I'm as prepared as I can be.
And maybe you'll take some time to sit and visualize the different scenarios.
Sure.
And how will you do the visualizing? Where will you do that? Will you do that by going onto a website and looking at different examples, or putting music on, or watching a video, or how will you visualize and use your imagination in ways that can really give you different scenarios? How will you do that?
A great way I just actually thought is I'll just use my younger brother. Make
Okay.
him do the one-on-one interview, and then I could play out the whole scenario, get a better feel for it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a suggestion. You can go back now, and thanks, Daniel. That's great. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to give you something before you even talk to your brother. Try to find a quiet place, if you can. Unplug. What's that, W Dan? What's W Dan? Oh, Win Dan. Yeah, exactly. But thank you, W Dan. Find a quiet place where you can hear yourself think, and where you can see things in your imagination, where you can visualize. Athletes do this a lot, before they go for a big game or a big contest, is they'll sit, advance quietly, and they'll meditate, or they'll think, but they'll actually imagine it. They'll imagine the winging it. They'll imagine, the super prepared. They'll imagine, the surprise, as if it happened. But you can't do that imagining if your mind is being busy with other things. Your brother, the websites, you need to have your head focused. I'm not so sure about that. You might want to ask, let's say, any athlete, any Olympic athlete who has won a high medal, a silver or a gold medal. Let's say, I wouldn't say Usain Bolt, because I don't know for certain, but there are Canadian athletes who have talked about this, that when they visualized the race, the sprint, the high jump, the long jump, the boxing match, the knockout beforehand, there was a greater chance for them that it would happen. That it would happen because they felt they had seen it happen beforehand. Yes. It's in the visualizing you get specific, and it may not make it happen, but it gives you greater confidence. And that's the critical thing, Daniel, is you want confidence always when you're going into the future. When we go into the future, we don't want to enter the future afraid. We want to enter with a sense of confidence and a sense that we can do this. And then we have a greater chance at success, particularly if something happens and we have to change our plans. We will be more confident about our ability to adapt if we've thought in advance about how we will do this. So it's not really, Daniel, about, in the end, it happening the way you want. It's about the confidence that you need when you face the future. When we face the future with fear, it can be a problem for us in dealing with what comes up. So I'm trying to help you develop that confidence to face the future. Okay? So Okay, we're in a long review right now. I'm going to stop because I really want to provide you with some critical lessons from history today. But is there anything that you would like to add at this point around the idea of how you create scenarios for yourself, different scenarios to be ready for the future? Think about all the different ways that you can think about the future, and then you will be ready. Okay, so let me bring something up here because I have some images and other things, and I'm going to start right here. And I will move this over here. So we have it here, and then over here, I will bring our notes. All right, so who feels like they'd like to go stand by the smartboard and make some notes? I can sort of help you start for a moment, but I would say that the person who's most sort of horizontal, but not completely horizontal, should be the person who should be most vertical. Now, I don't know, Mr. Horizontal, why don't you come over here and be vertical? Okay. Here we go. So time for notes, and let me just make sure this is not contaminated and everything because I don't want you to be sick. Okay. Please write up here your name and just your full name, and we're going to call them your notes. But first, we need your full name. Okay. So it is Zach Trelford. Zach Trelford's notes. Would you just add a little possessive sort of up there? Zach Trelford's notes. Beautiful. Now we have a class that's starting to take shape around what I call a multimedia student-focused lecture. I'm going to lecture right now, but not quite, because he's going to be taking notes, and I'm going to be presenting some images and other things, and we're going to talk. So it's going to be a kind of interactive lecture. So the first thing I want to say is that we need to remind ourselves of what we are actually exploring this semester. So far, we have looked at kind of an overview of the course. We've looked a little bit at the ways to think about the future. We've looked at history's lessons. Next week is the next big thing. We're going to be looking at sustainability and the idea of democracy and together on earth, science and religion, a current event. We're moving towards the human brain and your legacy. Everything that we explore this semester is all moving ultimately towards the idea of how are you going to be living your life during your brief time on this planet that will make some sort of impact. That's called legacy. And impact does not have to be change the world. It just means that you're going to do something in your life that your future is going to have value and meaning. So all of what we're exploring, these different topics, week to week, is building towards this idea that you're going to learn more about the power of your brain and what an instrument it is in terms of the memory that you have, the ability to concentrate, the ability to motivate, and ultimately the ability to make change, positive change in your life and maybe in other people's lives. That's legacy. Now, when we look at history's lessons, so far, we've looked a little bit at this idea of freeing your mind, freeing your imagination, and that was last week. We just touched on that from the video I showed you from MIT, and the idea that you saw of how failures of imagination, failures of planning, meant that we humans in the early part of the 20th century were still thinking about how to clean up horse crap on our streets, and we weren't quite ready for the automobile because we were thinking about horses and not cars yet. And then you saw, for example, how Blockbuster Video, in that video that I showed you from MIT, how once upon a time they were the place to go for a video, but then somehow they weren't ready for when videos were no longer so important because people didn't need to go to video stores anymore. But Blockbuster was not ready for that. And they failed, and Blockbuster has disappeared. Ask yourselves, how many companies, how many initiatives could have succeeded had they shown a greater imagination in being prepared for the future and adjusted to the changes taking place? In 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting, you will see some very good concrete advice on how to think about the future in concrete ways so that you will not fail as much as you need to. You do need to fail in order to succeed. Here is our first lesson for history, and it's a small lesson. It's not very big yet. We all need to fail to succeed. Zach, could you write that down? Just put that down. We all need to fail to succeed. We all need to fail to succeed. If you think that that doesn't make any sense, first read 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting, and you will come to understand how entrepreneurs and people who are creating new things, they often have had a long period of incubation, failure, and hits and misses before they finally succeed. And the most striking, powerful example of this is Apple computers. And I'm sure you're familiar with the name Stephen Jobs, the creator of Apple Computer, the person who created the iPhone, the iPod, the Apple computers, and through the 1980s was a pioneer of technology, giving computers a language that they had never had before. Before that, a lot of the computer language was still in code and difficult to understand, and he helped to make it a lot more simple and clear, as if we're just writing normal English. Stephen Jobs failed. He actually had to quit early on at Apple Computers, and he then went traveling for a long period, and then he returned and he rebuilt the company and made it an even greater success. There are many, many stories of people who will help you to understand that before there's success, there's failure, and that we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And this is just a small thing that all people who have succeeded in history will tell you. Not all, but most. That failure gives you strength in order to be ready for the problems that you have to solve to become a success. You don't get strong without failure. Okay, that's a small thing. Let's talk about big lessons of history. We know something today that is very important for all of us to understand, and that is the world has become a planet. When we look back a little bit in time, we will start to see that it's only in the last 50 to 60 years that human beings have started to understand that we live on a planet together. We only got our first photograph of the planet in 1968. That's it. It's called Earthrise. That was the first time that human beings actually were able to see the planet whole. And it's a remarkable moment. And the lesson from this is everything we do now has to be seen in terms of that thing, the planet, because we know we have the proof that there it is. We all live on that. And what we do on that together now has an impact on that thing called planet Earth. So the lesson from history, as we start to go a little bit back now, we're going to go further and further back in time to get some lessons from history is, here it is, the next one. The world has become a planet. It's that simple, that elegant, and that real. The world has become a planet. Yes, please. Yep, go ahead. The world has become a planet. It's not that the world is just this round sphere. It's not just that we're all connected on this planet and converged in a technological global civilization. It means that we have to think about nature, because there's a planet, and the planet has a thing called a biosphere around it. That's that little ribbon, that tiny ribbon around the edges. And beyond that, everything is not alive. Inside of that, the biosphere, everything is alive. Everything is alive on planet Earth. And so our actions, everything that we do now, matters in terms of life on this planet. Because guess what? We now see that outside of the planet, there is no life yet. We haven't found it. It might be there. This is a very important lesson. The world has become a planet. We have to think about life on this planet, sustaining this planet. I hope as I say these things, it inspires you, not overwhelms you with the idea that you have to think about the planet and worry about it. This should be a force of inspiration. The idea that it's a very big planet that we have. I'm part of something bigger, and I want to make sure that I can make my contribution to that. Let's go further back in time. Because when we talk about history's lessons, we're not talking about lessons from wars, things that happened in, let's say, the 20th century, or if we go a little bit further back in time, things that happened during Civil War in the United States, or if we go further back, the European Crusades, or if we go further back, we talk about the times when there was the Greco-Roman civilization, or when China emerged, or India emerged, or tribal societies emerged. This is called civilization. No, we actually have to go back further in time in terms of when we became human. This is important. Most of history that's taught today is taught in terms of the competition and wars that have happened, conflicts that have happened between societies. Who won those? Who lost those? Who were the generals and who were the conquerors? And all of that is significant. But there's something more here now. Because we know we live on a planet, because the world has become a planet, we start to wonder, well, what have humans been doing down there on planet Earth? Who are these humans down there on that planet? We think more broadly now in terms of history, and we say, what does it mean to be a human being? What is a human? Who are these humans? How have these humans advanced so quickly that they have become so dominant on the planet? How is it that no other species, no other creature ever in the 4.5 billion years of our planet has ever been able to do what humans have done in just a few thousand years? We are a remarkable force here. So what is our force? Well, here's a very important lesson. It wasn't that long ago, about 3 million years ago, that there were humans like us, just a few thousand. They didn't have quite our body shape yet. or even our brain size, but they were pretty close to being human. They were walking on 2 feet, not 4. They were bipeds, not quadrupeds. And these bipeds, they started to pick things up, pick up a rock. Nature. This is nature, okay? Humans didn't make rocks. Nature did. What did we humans do with these rocks? Think about what I'm showing you right now. And think about the lesson that we can gain from our ancestors. Because there is a critical lesson that we can gain from very early history. The first one is, and I will help you, okay? And we'll put it in Zach's notes. It's called the force of evolution. We're seeing it right there. The force of evolution will always be with us. I'm starting to sound a bit like a Star Wars character, but anyways, forgive me. Some of this is just coming from me for the first time. So the force of evolution will always be with us. The force of evolution. In this image, what's this early human doing? Zach? He's making a tool. Exactly. Tool making. Humans make tools. I'll write this down. Humans make tools. But then here's a lesson that to shift your perspective a little bit. Humans make tools. That's a tool, right? That microphone is a tool. Your knapsack is a tool. That drinking container is a tool. All of the things around us that make our lives easier, that we use on a regular basis, are tools. But here's the question. Why did that early human begin to make that tool out of rock? Why would he do that? Dinosaurs didn't, and any early creatures that have been here, early mammals, no other creatures have been so sophisticated in the way that they take things from nature and make tools from them. But we humans started to do it quite quickly. Why would we do that? What's that, Zach? Ooh, let's give him a microphone, okay? Hi, can you give Zach this mic? Just I don't want to. Oh, do you have a microphone over there, Zach? I want to hear what you have to say. Here's a very important lesson, and I'm going to turn something upside down for you so you understand that the lesson you probably think is here has another dimension. We often say that necessity is the mother of invention, don't we? I'm sure you've heard that before. A lot. That's one great lesson from history, apart from all the other ones that you may have heard, like, history repeats itself. That's not really true. Humans repeat themselves. History doesn't. There's nothing inevitable about history and its force. Humans make mistakes again and again and again, but they can also correct those mistakes. Humans repeat themselves, not history. Now, first, we might say that the reason that this early proto-human picked up this rock and began to make a tool out of it, it might have even been a weapon, was because he was trying to defend himself from some large creature, some tiger, some woolly mammoth. Well, there might be some truth to that, because it is true that we humans, through the tools that we created early on, killed off a lot of the big animals on this planet. They're not around anymore, or they're dying off. Where did the saber-toothed tiger go? We killed it. Something like 97% of all tigers on this planet were killed off by humans. And we can look at so many creatures on this planet that have been killed off by humans. But there's another way of looking at this that I think is the real lesson. Invention is the mother of necessity. Can you write that down, Zach? Invention is the mother of necessity. Invention is the mother of necessity. While Zach is writing that, let's take a peek at anything online, anything coming in the live chat. Okay. For now, we'll just stop for a moment and ask, just for a little help. Hello, Kiera. How are you today? Necessity is 1 C, 2 S's. Yeah, exactly. Not 2 C's. 1 C, 2 S's. Okay, I'll let the onliners alone for a little bit, and I'll stick with all of you. And I'll just assume they are all there for now, and I won't get too sidetracked. Let me come back to my image. An early human. Invention is the mother of necessity. I just said to you that I think that's the more important lesson from history. The necessity is the mother of invention. Why would I say that? Think about this. Do you think that something like Twitter, now X, or Facebook, now Meta, was invented because we needed these things? You think, Dad? You think we really needed these things? So then, why were they invented? Just hold it up, thanks, just so they can hear you. Why were they invented in the first place? Did somebody feel that the world really needed them, or was something else driving them?
I think it was like something where you can share, let's say you're not with your family, they go on vacation, at least you can share those moments with them. I think that probably is why they, let's say they created Facebook or Instagram or like Twitter, is just to share like your opinion on something and then what other people think of your opinion.
Okay,
So that's why I think kind of where it was in the beginning, what it led to.
that's one way of looking at it. Anyone else want to try and understand how we can address this question of why do these new technologies, these new tools around us, get invented in the first place? Is it because we need them? Or is there something else? Because in that something else, we have maybe a very important lesson here from history. Daniel? Because they can. Oh, we're getting close. We're getting warmer now. Do you think that you can control your curiosity?
On social media, no. Like you start to go through like a rabbit hole. You start to like, oh, who's this person's friend? And then you start to look through their social media. Like it's a rabbit hole. You keep going.
So when you're interested in something,
Yeah.
and you kind of get interested, you want to do more of it because you're fascinated by this, and it's sometimes hard to stop.
Yeah. Same thing with like TikTok. TikTok, you'll keep going for like hours on TikTok because you get similar content. Just like say the first video you watch, you keep going. Like you go down the hole.
We humans always want to know more and do more. We humans always want to know more and do more. That's a big lesson in history. I would say to you that a big reason why this early human picked up the rock was because he was curious. He wanted to see what he could do with it, in part because maybe he could. But it was this curiosity, wanting to know what he can do with that. It's called creativity. It's called wanting to create. We humans are restlessly creative. We humans are restlessly creative. We can't stop that, can we? I'm going to ask you to think about yourself, just the way not what's your name again? It's Letitia. Kanisha.
Okay.
Sorry, I was going to say Letitia. Kanisha. Thank you, Kanisha. Both Kanisha and Daniel have been very good in helping us to understand more the student perspective. I'm going to go a little further right now, and I'm going to ask another student to come up here a little bit so we can explore this idea of the restlessly creative human being. That is one of our greatest lessons in history because it's going to lead to him. Who's he? Chris Hadfield, our great astronaut, going into space. Why do we humans go into space? To make a lot of money? Maybe to explore, because we are restlessly inquisitive and creative, and we can't stop that. But let's see if this is really, really true in terms of your own life. So Kanisha's been here. She's sort of there. Daniel's been there. And what's your name again? It's Ethan. Sorry, Ethan. Ethan's been good. How about you want to come and take a seat? Yeah, okay. And grab a microphone. Okay. And Zach is good. We humans are restlessly creative. Thanks, Zach. Looks good up here. And what's your name again? Sorry. Today is, yeah. Krish. Thank you, Krish. Krish, what program are you in?
I'm basically in comp sci.
You're in business?
Comp sci,
Comp sci. Okay. And what year?
second year.
Second year. Okay. Do you think this idea of the restlessly creative human being is sort of your professor just going off on a tangent here, and it's kind of like what is this he's talking about, or does this sort of resonate a bit with you?
No, I don't think you're going on any tangent. I think there's truth in the fact that humans crave knowledge.
So let's talk about your life a little bit. Not anything personal, okay? But would you say that you're a bit of a problem solver?
In some cases, I
Some
guess.
cases, okay. But when you've approached problems, that you've had to solve, would you say that your kind of ability to kind of create a different sort of solution to that problem helped to solve it, or did you just follow the directions that you were being given?
The first one,
So that
for sure.
that your creativity was helping you?
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's a remarkable thing, our creativity, our desire to try to sort of figure out what to do with the situation and resolve it. And we don't know from any kind of scientific observation that's been done yet exactly where our creativity comes from. We can say it has to do with our brains and the fact that we have billions of neurons and there are parts of our brain that are more developed than other creatures. But in terms of those moments of inspiration and things where we begin to see a new way, that's beautifully human. See, that early human who picked up the rock, well, he could have just left it there and let the rock do what it normally does. But he wanted to do something different with it. And we don't even know, and never will, if he had a plan in mind. Maybe he did. But the fact is, he did do it. He picked it up and he changed it. That's creativity. That's working with the world around you and turning it into something different. That's taking a problem, and instead of accepting that problem will continue, it's you applying something new to solve it and change it. And we humans do that very, very well. You do that well, more well than you think. Is there anything you'd like to add about this idea of being restless, for example? Do you sometimes find it's hard to turn off your brain, turn off your mind, that you wish you could just kind of like stop thinking?
From time to time,
From
yeah.
time to time? Good luck. Maybe go to sleep. But then the mind doesn't even sleep, does it? Because You've got all these dreams happening, and you can wake up with some amazing scenes in your mind that you'll start to talk about. We humans are restlessly creative, and it is a really powerful force. Okay? Great. Thank you very much. Okay? So, I want to just tell you something a little bit more about this idea of our restless creativity, and then we're going to finish up today. Okay? Our ability to build and create and dominate the planet in a way that no other creature ever has given what we say today in the 21st century is unusual power, collectively speaking. We humans have immense power now on this planet. We are changing the planet. We are changing nature, changing climate. We are moving into space. We're thinking of going to other planets. And we often talk about this idea of power collectively. It raises a very significant question. And this is another lesson from history that we need to be very conscious of, which is our restless creativity raises a critical question. And so the lesson here to put down is there is a critical question we must ask. Okay? That's all you need to write. And there's the question for you. I want you to think about this for a moment. Do we understand how to use our power equitably and sustainably? These two great forces in human society, inequality or equality, and sustainability or waste. These have become very important in our times. So much conflict in the world today still revolves around the fact that we look at people who are different from us as often people who are less than us somehow. We haven't understood yet how important it is to respect the rights and dignity of all human beings. We don't fully understand really what equality means. We're still getting there. And then sustainability is a very big question now. When we know that we can raise the temperature of the planet because of the waste that we put into the atmosphere, well, that raises very big questions about our power in terms of its impact on nature. Do we understand how to use our power equitably and sustainably? That's a very, very big question that we must ask as humans. But it's a lesson from history. We have to think about increasingly the idea that humans have come together on the planet in different ways, different societies. We are now converged. We have so many people from different cultures all under one roof right now. Do we understand how to treat each other equally? Are we ready to give each other the respect that all of us deserve if so many of us are different? That it's not all just white people in the room together, not all just Indian people or Muslim people or Black people or women or men, but it's very diverse. The power that's allowed that to happen is the power of transportation, migration, communication, technology that's allowed us to all come together in this one space with all these different cultures. But do we really know how to interact with each other in that way where we will treat each other with that respect and sense of equality? And then it's the question of sustainability as well. So the final lesson that we can actually really say with a kind of positive sort of answer is that when we really think hard, as Isaac Newton once did, about the natural world, he pondered very deeply about what exactly is happening in nature. And that's where he began to understand something called gravity and many other things. But that's what humans do. Their restless imaginations, restless creativity leads them to think a lot and ponder and deeply think. And you know what we eventually conclude when we think so deeply about our place on this planet? The unstoppable force that we all have to get used to is evolution. Everything is changing. We can't stop that. So, how are you going to adjust to that? Everything in nature has been changing over hundreds of thousands and millions of years. If you look at the planet as whole, the way we do now, you start to open yourself up to this bigger story. You will see that down there on planet Earth, things have come and gone. There have been so many different creatures, so many different ways of living on this planet. And here we are, we humans, and we just arrived here as the civilized species about 10,000 years ago. That's remarkable. The lesson is everything changes and we can't stop it. Maybe we can stop it a little bit, but everything changes and we can't stop it. And when I say can't stop it, I mean it's in nature. Maybe one day we humans will have so much power here that we will be the ones deciding on everything that happens on this planet. But as far as I know for now, we still can't stop it from snowing. We still can't stop you from, dying after you're about 100. And we can't stop a lot of things that happen in the natural world, but we might eventually, but that's so far in the future. Change happens here. Change is happening faster because of humans. Are you ready for that? Will you be able to adjust to that? Okay? So everything changes and we can't stop it. Let's stop for a moment because I think we can probably conclude on that. And first, Zach, that's great. Thank you for that. If there's anything you want to add or put there, apart from your little smile, that's good. Okay, I'm going to save those. Let's do just a quick review and then 2 minutes because I want to make sure you're ready to hand in a great first assignment or reflection next week. Next Tuesday, it's due at 11:59. I decided not to put you into little groups to talk more about AI today. That's what my plan was because I learned from hearing you earlier that I did talk about AI last week. So there's no need to talk about it again today. As you leave the class today and you think about history's lessons, I'd like to ask you one thing, and I'd like to get at least one answer. How might these lessons apply to the rest of your day? As you leave this classroom and you go about the rest of your day at Durham College in 2024 in Oshawa, Canada, what has history's lessons, as I've just helped you to kind of see, shown you about how to look at the day ahead of you? Is there anything that you would walk away with right now? One thing that would be different in the way that you look at how you're going to live the rest of your day today, based on what history kind of teaches us. And I've only introduced a few things. Ethan. Is it Ethan? Ethan, not Ethan? Okay. Grab a microphone, okay? And just off the top of your head, come and tell us, and then we're going to conclude, okay? One thing. You're leaving this classroom, you've just heard some history's lessons. None of you, thankfully, disappeared into your machines. I think you were listening, which is great. So you were present. Your mind was present.
I kind of come out of these classes with more open-mindedness when it comes to like my classes and with everything that's happening around me.
Open mind, meaning that you're ready for more, anything that
Yeah.
you're ready. Good. You ready for change?
Mhm.
You're not afraid of change?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of scary, but it happens anyway, and I can't
Okay.
really do anything about it.
All right. Anybody want to add anything before we conclude? You good, Daniel? Yep. Okay. You ready for your first reflection? Do you know what you're going to write on? Okay. Please do not use AI to write your sentences. If you need to generate ideas, no problem. But when the foot hits the pedal hits the metal, and you got to write the sentences, please don't let the machine do it. Use your brain to do that. The struggle for which word to choose, where to put the comma, when to end the sentence, how it works, this is critical thinking. Do not give that over, please, to a machine. Zach, anything? You good? Okay. Thank you all. And you know where to find me if you need to reach me, and I'll just check with everybody online. And if not, we will conclude the class. To create the need to be part of something, the need to be validated, the need to capitalize. Yep. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, Kara. Good. Okay, everybody. Brooklyn, absolutely write it about scenario planning. If that's what you plan to do, you were listening. Good. Okay. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to end first. I'm going to save the chat so that I don't lose your thoughts. And let me just do that. Export as a PDF. And the rest I can, and I'll stop the live stream. And then I'll do it up here.